Today I'm going to go ahead and show you some fun nail art. This is kind of like a layered palm look, but it's going to help you understand some gel theory behind art. So I'm laying down my gel color. This would go over whatever base you have, acrylic, hard gel, soft gel, whatever. I'm going to take that little bit of the color I just used while that gel is curing on the nail, and I'm going to do a little dollop. Now, this is me kind of laying out my palette I want to work with. When I'm choosing the colors I want to work with on a look like this, they're not necessarily monochromatic, but they live within that same kind of family. So, for example, here, this bluish color is not really like our soft tans and mauves or this soft kind of periwinkle, but they all have a slight dusty hue to them. I wouldn't want to throw in like a primary color or something too harsh could throw it off unless it was really intentional for the look. For this layered look, I want things to feel really cohesive. So once that base color is cured, I'm going to just go through here and I'm laying down a nice thin layer of this top coat. And I'm just tracing my edges and going through, making sure I don't have it pooled anywhere and I don't have any excess product sitting on the nail plate or running into the cuticle. Once that's cured, by the way, that's a matte top coat, I'm going to go grab one of these colors and I'm running the product through my brush so that I have a little control. Let's start with just a line, just a curved swoop line, because art, we want it to move across the nail. Now I'm going to go in and add a little bit of leaf work. I'm not going to be too heavy-handed. I'm going to go ahead and lay down my leaves slightly offset from the stem. So that looks like this, where I just kind of put down pressure and then release pressure. All I'm doing here is using the point of the brush and the body of the brush that is carrying the gel. And I'm not connecting it to my stem because if I did, it would bleed right into it and we would lose that definition. So it's all about pressure here. And this is something I haven't done a ton where it's pressure and lift off and pull away. But that is what we're doing here. Pressure, lift off, pull away to get that point. It's kind of lovely. And if you practice it, you'll be able to do leaf work really, really quickly. So I'm enjoying it, but you can notice I kind of slowed down here because I'm not entirely sure. Normally I would go side to side like I did right there. I think my angle was better on the first ones for that technique, but I did pretty good and I'm not going to fuss because nature isn't perfect. I am, however, going to make sure all of these little leaves have a point so they don't look like a blob. Once I like it, I'm going to go ahead and cure that. You want to cure between these layers because we're going to use different colors and we're going to lay on top. And with gel, the beauty is you can cure in between and you don't have to let it dry necessarily. And if we mess up on this next layer or we don't like it, we can just wipe that layer off. So again, we're going to go in with that little bit of a curve and I'm actually creating the leaf here. I'm not doing a stem. So think of it almost like a flame. See how that kind of has that flame shape to it, comes to a point, goes out, comes back in. And I'm just filling it in. I don't want it too bulky. I just want it to have the color there because we are working on layers. Let me grab a little bit more over here. Actually, this is kind of part of the process. I'm going to wipe that brush off of some product and grab this back. But it's kind of a creation process we're running through here. I'm wanting to balance the entire nail. So I have that main stem coming through the middle. Then I address the tip with a bigger leaf and then up in that cuticle zone with a bigger leaf. That's going to help me with the overall balanced look. And I did cure that because now I want to layer some things. So let me grab a little bit, and I keep putting it on my nail hair as a little palette. You can do this. You don't have to do it. When I'm practicing things, I do it often. So I'm just going to add, I almost like to think of these as like little grasses coming out, working in that natural foliage zone still. And that kind of completes that tip. Do you see how that really pulled together the tip? So now we have one element coming through the middle, our free edge and our cuticle with something, and then I added in a slightly different color something for that free edge. Now let's complete up here by the cuticle. So I'm pulling a different color again in that family, and I'm layering over the leaves a little. Over here on the side, I feel like gets forgotten. So I want to make sure right away that I'm remembering that side wall. And it's not an entire leaf. Notice how it's half of a leaf. The idea here is we want it to look like that art is like continuing off the nail. Same over here. I'm continuing it off the nail. That sets apart high-end like artwork compared to maybe more newer amateur artwork. You don't need everything centered on the nail. You want flow on the nail and you want the artwork continuing off the nail. All right, we've played in that color family enough. Everything's cured. Let's go in and layer just a little bit more of our brighter, I guess I want to say colors, but they're just in a different zone with our blues and our greens and everything, but still have that nice muted kind of dusty feel. So I find it is hard for people to layer over art they have already done. And for a look like this, you have to be willing to do it, which means you have to be willing to mess up a little bit. So when I'm doing these steps here, like I'm adding to my grasses, you can see now it has dimension with 2 colors and all of that. I am willing to wipe it off if it doesn't work. But I liked where it was, so I cured it. Let's move into this yummy little periwinkle. This is going to pop really nicely off the nail, but again, not a huge distraction by any means. I just have to get the right amount of product in my brush or it's going to be a big blob. I'm going to go in, I'm going to do a little bit of the grasses fill. It can get tricky over your previous art because it might be a little textured. If things are too textured, you can always do a layer of base to smooth things out if you're going to add real detailed work. Here I could work over it. But keep in mind, any layer you add on can add thickness to the nail. So before I would do this on a client, whatever base product I'm using, acrylic, hard gel, soft gel, acrid gel, I'm going to keep in mind as I lay that base foundation, how many layers of art I'm going to put over this so that when I flow over, I get a smooth finish. That doesn't mean I change my structure. I still have my structure underneath it, but the thickness of the product will be amplified by what's going on top. So keep that in mind. Now we're just adding some fun touches to the nail. You do have to kind of sit back and look at it and decide if you like how it's looking. I did go and put a clear coat, you can see here, so that I could get a little bit easier as I do these grasses over the previous art. So I'm doing the same thing we did very first step. A stem came through and then I'm setting my leaves off of the stem. You still get the complete look. Your brain will complete that look. And if you really wanted to, after all the leaves were down, and I do this sometimes, I'll go through and just gently barely connect them to the stem, like the tiniest piece. Sorry, slid off camera here. It's always tricky to film all the art and all the angles, but we're doing okay. So as I do this, I'm making them a little bit longer leaves. They're not exactly the same. We want some variety here. And how many of you would have thought to use like a very soft, I would call this like, it's kind of a soft periwinkle. There's a little purple, a little blue in there. Definitely dusty, definitely beautiful. All right, we're going to cure that. Now, ironically, the last color we're going to use on this whole leafing foliage layered palm look is a green color. So I'm going to run my brush through, and no, in between colors, I just kind of wipe my brush off dry. If it were going from like black to white, I would need to clean it thoroughly, but I'm just going to add some greenery or grass here up in the corner. I'm looking at the balance, making sure the art is continuing off the nail like we like it to, and then I can add any details that I need to add just to finish things off. So you can see me rocking it back and forth, trying to decide. Sometimes on this step, I'll trace things a little bit just to give it more definition. With this look, I don't want it traced, but I do want those layered leaves. So that's why I added that on the tip just to give it a little something. And don't shy away from that layering. I know it really, for lack of a better word, kind of sucks to cover artwork you've done, but think about the bigger picture here. We need it to look so dimensional and so inviting, and people want to look at it more to see what is going on here. Okay, I love all this. It's cured. I'm going to go ahead and float top coat. When I say float, I'm just gently pulling it through and over. I'm making sure that there is a substantial amount of a top coat. So I like to use a little bit thicker one just to be sure that it fills in all the blanks. So that's what I'm doing here as I watch. And as I rotate it, I'm kind of looking at the line of light. I'm making sure it's not breaking a ton, which it was there at first. So I'm adding a little through the center. And again, this is that thickness we talked about at the beginning I would be aware of was coming. We're self-leveling much better, just a tiny bit up here, and we will be wrapping it up. You can also flip the nail upside down if you choose to help gravity pull and cover things, get an even finish. A lot of the time, if you get enough product on there, you can just watch it. All right, that is a freaking cute nail. I'm Hilary Dawn Herrera. I hope you stick around and subscribe.